I will now provide a brief statement, and then we can move on with our witness. Good morning, Chair, colleagues, and everyone here today. I asked Chair Vasquez to work with me on bringing this item to the floor because we all see that something fundamental is broken in this country. It's not just about laws and legal terms, it's about the very soul of who we claim to be as a society. Free speech and due process are basic promises that are supposed to protect every single one of us from unchecked power. Everyone.
Not
When these
illegals.
promises are broken, it doesn't just hurt individuals, it rips at the fabric of our communities, especially right here in Chicago, a city built on the power, the labor, and the dreams of diverse people, and the narrative of a fair shot for everyone. We're seeing things happen that should chill us to the bone.
Yes, we
Think
are.
about the stories we're hearing. Immigrants, people just looking for a safer, better life, being shipped off to dangerous places and the sea gone in El Salvador.
It's called ICE.
The country currently operates under emergency decree without due process law, and where human rights groups have long documented the horrifying conditions of the country's prisons. CICOS, the abbreviated name of this prison, stands for Center for Terrorism Confinement. This is a prison designed to contain terrorists. Imagine the conditions. Immigration is not terrorism. In reports shared by Human Rights Watch in March of this year, in their case against the Trump administration, deportation to this facility, lawyers cite the terrifying off-acre doubling of capacity at the prison from 20,000 to 40,000 people. This is a larger population than many of the neighborhood areas in Chicago in one facility. This is a facility that human rights groups describe as a black hole for abuses and warn it does not meet international standards. Many have recounted being tortured and beaten daily, fed rotten food.
We're here at the refugee and immigration meeting. She's fighting for illegal aliens, due process, and freedom of speech. This is who she's talking about.
My own constituent was kidnapped from Chicago on June 4th, and is still being detained. I know many of us in this room now and across our city have similar stories. We see the Trump administration construction of the Alligator Alcatraz concentration camp in Florida, which is receiving astonishing sums of money, an anticipated $450 million per year to hold our neighbors in horrible conditions.
No, that's not our neighbors. Criminals.
Are locked in overcrowded cage-style modules with broken plumbing, fecal overflow, fed mold-infested food, suffering under mosquito infestation, experiencing high indoor air temperatures and inadequate medical care. Most of these people have no criminal record. They have no real chance to seek their peace.
They came over here illegally.
These are human beings.
Therefore, breaking the law.
Denied the basic respect of due process that is supposed to be guaranteed to everyone on this land, no matter where they came from. And it's not just immigrants. It's American citizens.
No, it's
who
not.
Air Force for hours on end looking at very particular ways. We've heard of students and professors like Mahmoud Khalil being incarcerated without any legal process. Their voices are being silenced, their academic freedom jeopardized. When people are punished just for speaking their minds without a fair process, it creates a chilling fear. It tells us keep quiet, don't rock the boat. This is not a democracy. And at the same
We're a
time,
republic, that's why. They broke the constitutional laws.
The painful irony of all this is that while we're guarding vital social services, the very programs that support families
That you told us they weren't getting.
people out of poverty, we're pouring massive amounts of money into agencies like ICE. We're funding mass deportations and ripping families apart, all while the safety nets that protect us are being shredded.
Thank you, Trump.
These all sound unconscious. And we need to say it out loud. My committee just held a hearing on Tuesday where our public health department painted a dire picture for the future of public health programs because of the cuts in grants that fund almost the entirety of our department. I'm trying to speak this one more time. Free speech and due process aren't fancy legal terms just for lawyers to debate. They are the air we breathe in a democracy. They're what allows us to challenge injustice, hold those in power accountable, and build a truly just society. When these rights are chipped away brick by brick, the foundations of our democracy start to crumble. We're here because we need to act. And we need to act now.
We're gonna work with
Our state,
ICE.
our city, our country, we all have a role to play in standing up for these fundamental rights. We need to make sure everyone in our community has strong legal protection, push back against federal overreach, and rethink how we spend our money putting people and vital services
And
first.
who gonna pay for that?
Chicago has always been a city that fights for what is right. Now more than ever, it's time to live up to that legacy. This hearing is about better understanding the moment we're in, what's at stake, and what is needed from all of us to stand together to protect free speech and due process, not just for some, but for all. Let's make sure Chicago remains a place where every voice can be heard. And now I would like to pass it on to our witnesses if you don't have anything to say, Chair.
We're gonna work with ICE.
Thank you very much. I just, Alderperson Cesar Lopez has requested a virtual option for community hearing attendance in accordance with Rule 59 of the City Council Rules of Order, and I get a motion to allow him to attend.
These people get paid all this money and don't come to work.
By Alderman Sala, hearing objection so ordered, and then absolutely right back to the chair to introduce. Sorry.
Would the witnesses introduce themselves and then we can start with that?
My name is Ed Yarka. I'm the Director of Communications and Public Policy at the ACLU of Illinois.
Good morning, my name is Cecilia Mendoza. I'm the Associate Director of Government Relations with the National Immigrant Justice Center, NIJC.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. My name is Jesus del Toro, with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant and Migrant Refugee Rights, and I'm the Director of Policy and Litigation Initiatives.
Good morning, my name is Carl Cooper. I am the Chief Acting Officer at the Mayor's Office.
Do we have a preference on who speaks first? I can have the city speak first and then.
Totally open for how you like.
Carla, would you mind starting with your statement, then pass it to Jesus, and then we can go to NIJC and ACLU?
These people advocating for illegal aliens.
And members of the Committee on Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights, thank you for the invitation to testify before you today. Again, as I said, my name is Carl Cooper, and I'm the Chief Acting Officer in the Mayor's Office. The City of Chicago is committed to creating a future where identity and social status no longer predestined life outcomes. The Office of Community Justice that I lead seeks to advance institutional change that results in an equitable transformation of how we do business across the City of Chicago enterprise. This includes the city's service delivery, resource distribution, policy creation, and decision making. The city is committed to protecting individual rights in the following ways. We track and respond to hate crimes and hate incidents and work to build relationships with key stakeholders and communities who are experiencing hate activity and providing them with support and resources as needed. We have continued to fulfill the Mayor's executive order as well as the ordinance that came from this body to establish a transfemicide working group.
I want y'all to hear how hard what they're fighting for with these illegal aliens. Hate crimes.
Listening sessions on the west, south, and north side, which will result in a report with findings and recommendations designed to keep trans Chicagoans safe. CCHR also continues to deliver Know Your Rights presentations to educate Chicagoans about their rights under the city's anti-discrimination mandates, the human rights and fair housing ordinances, which prohibit discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations. As an office and in collaboration with city departments such as CCHR, CPD, and Streets and Sanitation, ORJ, my office, and other internal teams in the Mayor's office are improving communication and rapid response to hate crimes and incidents that are directed towards various communities who have been experiencing a surge in harmful behavior towards them over the last months. I would also like to name the work that the city's Department of Law is leading in this moment. If I have permission to read that statement? Yes. The Department of Law has filed 6 lawsuits against the Trump administration so far.
Listen to this.
These challenge the Trump administration's termination of a grant that reimburses the city for the cost of sheltering migrants.
Listen to this.
Funding under grant awarded to help the city prevent terrorist attacks, restrictions on funding for so-called sanctuary jurisdictions, requirement that grant applicants certify they will not promote DEI or, quote, gender ideology, unquote. mass firings of federal employees, and a rule that will increase the cost of insurance coverage under the Affordable Care Act. These lawsuits have already generated wins, including 2 orders temporarily stopping the Trump administration's illegal practices and the lifting of the freeze on our anti-terrorism funding. The Department of Law has also joined 24 multi-city amicus briefs in support of lawsuits filed by third parties against the Trump administration. These include briefs opposing the Trump administration's efforts to end birthright citizenship, reduce science funding, rescind protections for immigrants, deploy the National Guard, terminate grants awarded to help reduce crime, and cancel funding for local government projects that incorporate certain disadvantaged business enterprise codes. Once again, many of these lawsuits have already resulted in court orders temporarily stopping the Trump administration's practices while litigation proceeds. The Department of Law has taken many other actions to challenge the Trump administration. These include helping to appeal the administration's reduction of Head Start funding and termination of the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events grants, providing affidavits in support of lawsuits filed by Illinois and other states, and joining multi-city comments opposing efforts to rescind affirmative action in FHA housing programs and to change passport applications to exclude transgender people. Further, the Department of Law is defending the city in a number of inquiries and actions, including the Trump administration lawsuit attacking the city's welcoming ordinance.
That's why we must vote these people out.
I will pass it on to Reverend
Listen to what she just
I
said.
want to thank Chairman Vasquez and Chairwoman Rodriguez Sanchez for the opportunity to be present for this.
Thank you, President Trump.
Good morning, Chairman Vasquez, and members of the Committee on Immigrant and Refugee Rights. Thank you for the invitation to address the committee today. My name is Jesus Edvoto, Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives for the Mayor's Office of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights, under the leadership of Deputy Mayor Luis Ponce de Leon. Before I begin my formal testimony, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the urgency and seriousness of the moment. We are in a time when federal immigration enforcement is increasing. Fear is rising in many of our communities, and immigrant families are facing uncertainty and intimidation. The IMR team, as some of you may know them, remains deeply committed to standing with our communities and continuing the work to ensure safety for all Chicagoans, and affirming that every person, regardless of immigration status, has rights that are protected under the U.S. Constitution. Since its establishment 2 years ago, IMR has promoted the inclusion and equitable treatment of immigrants, migrants, and refugees in Chicago. We work across state departments, policymakers, and communities to ensure our immigrant and refugee communities have access to critical supports. In my role, I also have the honor of representing the City of Chicago as co-chair of Cities for Action, a coalition of more than 200 U.S. mayors and county executives advocating for pro-immigrant federal policies. Through this network, I hear regularly from our peers across the country about how cities large and small are grappling with the impacts of increased immigration enforcement. I'm here today to outline some of the work that the IMR team is leading to support both our city partners and immigrant-serving organizations like the National Immigrant Justice Center, Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, the Restoration Project, and others. In the past several months, IMR has partnered with the Chicago Transit Authority to launch a multilingual Know Your Rights campaign across 400 locations. Collaborated with the Chicago Public Library and the Restoration Project to host Know Your Rights workshops to ensure all Chicagoans know their constitutional rights. Partnered with organizations and with many of you to support your Know Your Rights events and your awards. Printed and distributed key information about available legal supports at community events, cultural celebrations, and other public gatherings to ensure broad access and awareness. We also participated in the launch of a centralized information and resource hub, or the IllinoisImmigrationInfo.org, in partnership with the Illinois Department of Human Services, NIJC, TRP, and ICER. And as co-chairs of Cities for Action, we also led a collaboration with over 30 cities across the country to launch a digital campaign to underscore the importance of our immigrant communities to our respective cities, coupled with accurate information on legal supports and Know Your Right information like that of ACLU and NIJC. And furthermore, the IMA team has supported the city's Department of Law in drafting guidelines for all city departments, officials, and employees for how to respond if visited by federal representatives. These are just a few examples of how the IMA office works across departments and external groups to advance policies, tools, and practices to support our immigrant and refugee communities. With that said, I'm here to listen, take input from members of this body, and work in close collaboration to ensure that all Chicagoans know their rights, feel safe in their communities, and have access to the resources Chicago offers. IMA remains fully committed to advancing this work in partnership with the members of the Committee on Immigrant and Refugee Rights, and we welcome the opportunity to meet with your offices and teams to further this shared mission. Thank you, Chairman.
And you see why we must vote these people out? Do you see what I'm talking about? You all see it.
Good morning, Cecilia Mendoza with the National Immigrant Justice Center. Thank you to Alderwoman Rodriguez Sanchez, Alderman Vasquez, and the Committee on Immigrant and Refugee Rights for inviting NIJC to participate in today's meeting. As a nation, we are seeing unprecedented levels of executive overreach, with the administration piloting some of its most egregious authoritarian tactics in the immigration context, including violating court orders and constitutional rights.
Thank you, Trump.
More and more of our community knows exactly what it's like to be the target of the Trump administration's cruelty and lawlessness. Ricardo was one of the people this administration disappeared to El Salvador with no notice.
Thank you, Trump.
Ricardo was a delivery worker in Michigan, picking up an order and on his way to deliver it when he was arrested by immigration authorities. The Trump administration refused to provide information on Ricardo's whereabouts. For 5 weeks, he was disappeared in the ICE detention system. It wasn't until the New York Times reported on his story that the administration admitted they had already sent Ricardo to El Salvador's infamous CPOP prison in a social media post. Ricardo's friend, who was an NIJC client in Chicago, had been trying to locate him for weeks. Even now, after the Salvadorian government sent over 200 Venezuelans from CPOP to Venezuela, Ricardo's family and friends have yet to hear from him, adding to the fear our clients and communities are feeling, worried they could be next.
Thank you.
Ricardo is one of many examples of how the administration disappears people
See,
with no evidence or accountability.
These people come over here illegally, and then they want to cry about rights.
The same claims that they have been using to target hundreds of other people detained indefinitely, either within ICE's sprawling detention center or sent to a foreign country.
They
This
have a,
administration knows no borders when it comes to violating due process and defying court orders and the U.S. Constitution. Here in Chicago, we are very familiar with the extensive harm that comes from law enforcement wrongfully labeling people as gang members, and we are seeing this administration proudly running with those racial profiling practices. To be clear, racial profiling is not new to ICE or the Trump administration. In 2018, NIJC, along with ACLU of Illinois, ICER, and OCAT, sued over violations of the Immigration and Nationality Act and Fourth Amendment protections after raids occurred in Chicago during Trump's first administration. During those raids, ICE officers failed to comply with its limited warrantless arrest authority before making many collateral arrests, including racially motivated traffic stops. In 2022, the government agreed to a settlement agreement where we often refer to as the Castañón-Nava settlement, and ICE issued a nationwide policy setting forth requirements and limits for making warrantless arrests and vehicle stops. When the Trump administration returned to office, they violated the Castañón-Nava settlement within their first
the
week.
Democratic Party violated every law.
We had to return to court to enforce the settlement and defend Chicagoans from ICE's rampant abuses.
Listen to this, y'all.
Abel is one of the plaintiffs in our motion to enforce the Castañón-Nava settlement. Abel, who has been in the United States for nearly 30 years, was abducted by half a dozen armed ICE agents in a case of mistaken identity. Once ICE realized Abel was not their target, they refused to let him go, even when he went into an asthma attack. 6 months later, he is trapped in detention in a county jail in Kentucky.
He's here illegally.
Abel owned his own business that is now in jeopardy. He has his wife who is battling cancer, while he continues to fight for a full day in court and his due process rights. There are thousands of people like Abed facing the harsh crackdown from this administration on people who have been here for decades.
But you came over
The
here
motion to enforce
illegally.
Abed is part of was filed in March of this year. It includes 22 examples of violations to the settlement days after Trump's inauguration. Abed is the only plaintiff still in detention. We are waiting on the judge's decision on this case, where we sought an extension of the Castaño-Nava settlement and relief for Abed so he can finally be reunited with his family.
I support ICE.
This is how the Trump administration is treating people who are pillars to our community, business owners, devoted parents, grandparents. This is also how they treat people who have fled authoritarian regimes and violent dictatorships, people who have come to the United States seeking refuge. Understandably, our communities are terrified, facing increasingly difficult decisions. We need legal defense more than ever.
You see this?
Doing everything we can to get people connected to legal representation is one of the necessary steps.
We're paying for this. The taxpayers are paying for this, for their legal representation.
The Chicago Legal Protection Fund, which was started in 2017 in response to the Trump's
You see this?
first term in office to defend Chicagoans' rights. This is especially important now that Congress has given the Department
Not
of
Chicago
Homeland Security
citizens' rights. She talking about
$170 billion
illegal alien rights.
to balloon the immigration enforcement industrial complex, while also imposing what in practice is a wealth tax on the most vulnerable by dramatically increasing filing fees on humanitarian protections. Congress has handed over $170 billion regardless of the fact that they have been consistently violating the Constitution and existing U.S. laws.
Thank you, ICE.
Operating as a lawless and rogue agency that now has the largest law enforcement budget in the country.
Yay!
In the face of these attacks, NIJC remains committed to working with all of our partner organizations, legislators at all levels, the mayor's office, and the distinguished members of the city council to protect everyone's due process rights. We bring our 40-plus years of direct legal services, litigation, and policy expertise.
Yes,
to
Tom
continue
Homan
to
is doing a great
hold
job.
the government accountable for its lawlessness. But it will take all of us working together to protect all of our communities.
But you-
Thank you.
So you see what these people fighting for. I'm telling y'all.
Chair Vasquez, Vice Chair Taylor, and members of the Committee on Immigration and Refugee Rights. As you heard before, my name is Ed Yalka, and I am the Director of Communications and Public Policy at the ACLU of Illinois. I really want to thank you for including the ACLU as part of this meeting today and letting us share these views. But I do want to take a moment of sort of personal privilege at the top to say how happy I am and honored I am to be here with Cecilia on behalf of the National Immigrant Justice Center. NIJC has been a leader in legal representation and just the fight for basic fairness for immigrants for years. And I have long been both a supporter and admirer of their work. The concept of due process is rooted in English common law and was very intentionally enshrined into our Constitution by our framers. It is mostly found in the 5th and the 14th Amendments to the Constitution. But the basic notion behind this constitutional principle is that no one in America, neither citizen nor non-citizen, can be denied life, liberty, or property without a process, without a reason.
They had due process, guys.
Again,
They had
neither
process,
citizen
due
nor
process.
non-citizen. The framers of the Constitution knew when to use the word citizen, and they never used it in the 5th Amendment or the 14th Amendment, except around birthright citizenship.
But the descendants of the
In its
enslaved.
text, its tradition and precedent, our Constitution guarantees that people get a fair hearing before the government takes away their freedom or their property. And just to put it as simply and bluntly as one can, government has to follow certain rules before they can do bad stuff to people. Now, the current occupant of the Oval Office has, I think we can charitably say, a somewhat complicated relationship with the concept of due process. He, for example, seemed to fully embrace due process and utilized our entire court system, from district courts to the Supreme Court of the United States, when he was charged as a criminal defendant.
He's an American
And
citizen.
let me just say, there's nothing wrong with what the president did in that instance. The ACLU has long supported the right and the ability of people to fully utilize all the procedures when they're being threatened with criminal charges. But at the very same time, Donald Trump believes that the right to due process extends only to those that he likes.
For
Not
Americans.
to anyone he deems to be an enemy or deems to be an opponent.
American
Or simply
citizens.
someone who can be a convenient political foil to advance his authoritarian ambitions. He regularly rages on social media and even in the Oval Office about quote-unquote evil people who should be punished without ever offering any evidence that those individuals have done anything wrong. I hasten to remind you that literally last weekend, the president shared an AI-generated video imagining former President Obama being handcuffed and arrested.
Thank you. Thank you.
He offered no evidence. Yes.
Say any people who are here watching do not be speaking while we're having people testify. If you continue, that will be asking for you to be removed. Thank you so much.
Free speech.
Free speech.
You're allowed to have a minute.
Due process. I'm suing you too. You're next.
Would you like to continue?
Yeah, just let you know.
The president offered no evidence that the former president had committed a crime, and in fact seemed to ignore that he himself had won a judgment from the Supreme Court saying that presidents in doing their duty as president have full immunity from prosecution. This is not normal, and frankly, it's just un-American. The disregard for due process is particularly disturbing, as you've heard, as the Trump administration carries out their mass detention and deportation program. In the months that the president has been back in office for his second term, the ACLU has filed 27 lawsuits against the administration just related to immigration.
Listen to this. Listen.
27.
Listen.
That's an average about one each week for his second term. And by the way, if he has any questions, we're willing to keep that up for the duration of the term.
You hear this?
Most
Listen.
of these lawsuits allege that the administration is detaining people and deporting them without giving them anything that resembles a fair hearing in a court. Indeed, Trump's vice president, who is a Yale-educated lawyer, has asserted that the administration simply doesn't have the time to give every person that wishes, that they wish to deport due process. It's critical to point out that the Trump administration is not content to simply violate immigrants and refugees' due process rights. Trump and ICE are trampling other key constitutional rights, including the Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizures by law enforcement. Under the Trump administration, we now regularly see heavily armed, masked, and unidentified ICE agents patrolling the streets of Chicago and other American cities in unmarked vehicles and sweeping people up off the streets. These officers target people for enforcement based on their appearance, not on any evidence that an individual is involved in any wrongdoing.
That's a lie.
When stopped, these people are asked to prove their lawful status, rather than the government having the burden of being forced to prove that an individual should be subject to immigration enforcement action. In other words, even before the denial of due process, the Trump and ICE policies already violate our Constitution. The administration, as you've heard, has gone so far to invoke a 19th century law, the Alien Enemies Act, a law from one of the darkest times for civil liberties in American history, in order to remove several hundred men to El Salvador. The government simply believed or asserted that these people were members of a Venezuelan gang. The proof of this assertion was scant at best. Government officials pointed to tattoos that may or may not have been gang-related, or took the word of unreliable informants to send these men to a gulag Whereas we were now learning, and as the Alderwoman pointed out, they were beaten and starved. Another critical element of due process, of course, is the ability to use and fully utilize the legal process before experiencing some sort of punishment. The Trump administration is obliterating this concept in immigration proceedings. We see regular reports of immigrants and asylum seekers who are following all the rules.
No, they broke the law to get here. Please like and share this. Please share this so you can show your people what these Democrats are fighting for and who are they fighting for.
Only to be suddenly told without a lawyer that their case for appeal is being dismissed and that they are immediately being taken into custody. NIJC, by the way, is leading a lawsuit that is challenging this practice across the country. And likewise, as we've seen right here in this city, immigrants who show up to mandatory check-ins at ICE offices like the one in the South Loop are suddenly detained and disappear. This treatment of people who are complying with
That's because the judge told them they
is a
can.
violation of due process. It is certainly not the targeting of the worst of the worst, and it does not remove dangerous criminals from our
That's
streets.
because the judge dismissed the asylum case. They received due process. These people are lying.
None of us should imagine that we are immune from these violations once they are normalized and tolerated. It doesn't matter if we are an immigrant. It doesn't matter if we're a green card holder. It doesn't matter if we are a naturalized or a birthright citizen. This administration has made clear that they will seek punishment of anyone they find to be an enemy, an opponent, or inconvenient. Due process be damned. That is why it is critical for all of us to stand up to the attack that's ongoing.
That's right. It's critical that we vote, you all. We have to vote these people out. We have to flip red.
Immigrant and refugee neighbors and friends. It is indeed a protection that applies to each of us. Due process is not something that can be meted out in some cases and then conveniently left on the sidelines in others. It is critical, if we are going to live up to our American values, that we protect due process lest we all be the victims of a power-hungry, authoritarian-leaning regime. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Chairman, Alderwoman Brady,
I will. Can both of you, Cecilia and speak about the status of some of the lawsuits and how, in what direction we're moving in relation to those? And then, do we believe that we are going to be able to prevail, not only on the ones that we are already working on, but are the lawsuits the main way in which we are going to defeat?
See, look at this.
The intentions and
Thank you for the question. I think the way to think about litigation in this instance is that litigation is a first step to larger solutions that require bodies like these, and frankly, all of us as human beings to stand up and oppose, what we're seeing from the administration. So thinking about the litigation itself, in the 27 suits that we have filed since the administration's been in place, we've actually seen some relief from the courts in about half of those, or a little over half of them. For example, in the case of, removing people to the El Salvadoran gulag, we were able to get court orders to block that without some sort of meaningful due process. We also know, by the way, that the administration in the first instance actually ignored and defied the court order and put planes in the air and didn't turn them around after they were told to do so. So I think that's a separate issue that we should think about. In the case of, for example, the challenge to the use of expedited removal, which has traditionally been used proximate to the border for people who are just coming across. The idea was that you could do expedited removal for people who hadn't been here, who hadn't established roots. The administration is now using that process in the interior. That litigation, as an example, has moved more slowly. I'll just mention, and I hope I don't step on you here, Cecilia, but in the Castananava challenge and enforcement motion here in the Northern District of Illinois that Cecilia mentioned, the administration actually acknowledges that despite the fact that we had an enforcement motion pending, and that one of the precepts of the agreement was that it couldn't expire if there was an enforcement motion pending, they sent out a memo to everybody saying that agreement is no longer in place. So, you know, that while some of the litigation has moved and we've seen protection, certainly in the birthright citizenship case we have, in other instances, it is moving more slowly, and we see the administration often ignoring it.
Thank you.
That's why I would tell you.
Thank you, Trump.
I think more people speaking up about this. I think more public forums like this.
You hear
I think more ability to talk about this is critical. You know, I don't usually quote this, but I will. Over the weekend, we actually saw public opinion polling that shows that the administration's immigration enforcement policies are deeply unpopular.
No, it's not. That's a lie. That's a lie.
We've seen that consistently in poll after poll is because of the overreach that they're doing. And
That's a lie, y'all.
The more attention we pay to that, I think the harder we make it politically for people to be able
See,
to support.
he just lied. The American citizens are, he just
I will
lied.
also add that it's a very necessary part of accountability. And we are still seeing wins in this space. We had, just I believe a couple months ago, one protecting the right to seek asylum in one of our litigation cases, which is vital because everyone has a right to seek asylum here in the United States. And in addition, I also wanted to highlight that we are also litigating around funding. There is federal funding that went to children, people who have disabilities, and providing them with resources to be able to have an attorney in their immigration cases, because one is not provided to people in immigration cases. They have to seek their own, and there were federal dollars allocated to these vulnerable populations.
Do you hear that?
Children and people with disabilities that they stopped funding for.
Yeah, 'cause we're paying
our
for it.
litigation in regards to those programs, we did get decisions that ordered the administration to restore those fundings. And so those are one of the court orders that are not being followed, coming back to the point of just the lawlessness of this administration. So just to highlight a couple of those pieces of, this is the way that we keep and hold the administration accountable.
See, they want us to keep funding this garbage. They want the taxpayers.
When there's a case that we can present to hold their feet to the fire.
We need more American citizens to talk and stand up.
From the perspective of this body, we can always have these conversations. We can pass resolutions in city council, but we're very limited as a municipality. Do you have any recommendations in a legal way that we can use in order to be able to better protect people here in Chicago?
I think there are two things that occur to me. The first is that I think, you know, as we heard earlier, the city has been very active in terms of amicus briefs on these things. I think there'll be increasing calls for state and local officials to do amicus briefs as well, and I would encourage, you know, all the members of this council when asked to sort of take those asks seriously and explore and examine whether or not, you're willing to sign on to that.
Please share this and tell the American citizens to please watch this if you're in Chicago, in Illinois, so you can see what's going on.
Ways that we can build towards, as Cecilia talked about, accountability. Just two things I would mention. As you heard, ICE is now being funded at a level that makes them akin to like France and Germany.
Yes, thank you, President.
And, you know, I think that means that it's going to be as you see things in the community, sharing those with our federal officials so that can become part of that process, I think is critically important. Making, encouraging federal officials to go and visit detention facilities, I think is critically important as well. And the last thing I'll just say that just within the last couple of weeks, there's been legislation introduced in Congress now in both chambers, something called the Visible Act, that would simply require that ICE and other federal officials identify themselves when they are engaged in immigration enforcement. I think, speaking out, encouraging members to co-sponsor that kind of legislation is a thing that, again, from this level up, from where you are closest on the ground to federal officials, I think is something that is, really critical and important for them to hear from you as well.
I would like to add that we are in such a stronger position than we were back in 2017. We have the Legal Protection Fund at the state level. We have access to justice. We have a lot of community organizations, including the mayor's office, that are getting Know Your Rights information out there, having referral systems for connecting people
Y'all hear
to
this?
legal representation. So there's systems that exist that can continue to be uplifted and supported. And also brainstorming. We're working with a lot of our partners to figure out how we get more pro bono support. So being a collaborative partner in those conversations as well, in addition to figuring out how we can continue to expand the reach of legal services to the community, which I acknowledge is difficult because there's a lot of need and just not enough representation. So continuing to have those conversations, finding those solutions, supporting the networks that we have established over the years that have prepared us and have put up a very strong defense from the start of this administration. And we need to meet the level that they're also trying to impose on us with this new funding. So we need to be able to meet that. And not to say that it's easy saying it here, but it is going to take all of us, and we want to continue having those conversations. I know a lot of you are working with your organizations that are in your wards. And that's really going to be key as we continue to navigate what the next couple of years are going to look like for all of our residents.
Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you so much for your presentation and for the work that you're doing every day. I give you my comments.
Thank you, President Trump.
When I go to members, I just have a couple questions. But first, I'd like to recognize all the persons appointed
Should
as
have been
the
streaming
president
this
of
on
the
X.
forum.
Man, you should have been streaming
Thank
this
you for
on
all the information that you're sharing. I've
I'm
got
on
questions
YouTube.
related to tracking.
After you're done, I'll just put it on.
We're obviously seeing the headlines of the amount of cases that are happening.
I'm tired of these.
Trying to get sense
Yeah,
of,
me too. I'm tired.
as it's playing out in courts, what the administration is being successful at, not being successful at. Is there tracking overall to get a sense of it, right? So your point, Director Yanka, is every week those numbers are changing. And also, kind of correlated to that, the categories that we're talking, right? Some are related to undocumented folks, some aren't. And I think different people focus on like narrative and stories is very visceral, and people may not understand the data as sort of how it's growing, where it's creeping into different facets of the public. And so just wondering if any of that is tracking that.
Actually, there are a number of different organizations who have done a really good job, I think, of tracking them. There are some that are sort of very public and accessible. The Washington Post, for example, has a tracking site of all of the litigation challenging the president's executive orders and executive actions. New York University Law School has one that I find particularly helpful because, as you say, it sort of both tracks by issue area, but also the intersections in issue areas. You know, recently HHS issued a rule reinterpreting a 1990s law so that Head Start programs would have to check legal status for people in order to enroll them. And so they're able to list that both in terms of services, but also in terms of immigration. So I think there are a number of different things that I'd be happy to get some of the links for some of those to you, because I think I personally find them very useful, because it's hard to keep up with the rulings that are happening day in and day out.
Yeah, and Ms. Mendoza,
Yeah, I'll add that it's sometimes tricky because there's a lot of self-reporting in the sense of like what organizations receive, what they're seeing with their clients.
That's what they
folks
should
that
do.
we, that unfortunately do not reach the network of folks providing services, so it is a little tricky. There are a few national reports. The National Immigrant Law Center, for example, has a map where they list like which states there have been people who've been sent to El Salvador reform, for example. But it's kind of very broad in the sense like at least one person from the state has been sent, just because of how difficult it can be to collect data. But I can also share a couple of those resources with you.
Yeah, if you could go to the chair and send as many of those resources as possible. Also, if there are any that are more localized to what's happening in Chicago as well, I think it's a good, we often, through, Welcome to Chicago.org website for the committee, as well as other communications we put out, want to make sure that people are thinking about it in this manner. As well as when we talk about the narratives and the understanding that, and we won't read the poem out, but we know one group will get targeted first, and those same systems are going to be expanded to then attack other populations. And so for us to be able to have this conversation about what shared challenges look like, I think it's helpful in a time where the intent of this presidential administration is to divide people. So that would be extremely helpful. I think the next question I have, and I don't know if there's an answer, but I think it's a question we get from constituents, we get from the public. I personally have. You mentioned the one case related to El Salvador where the administration actively, intentionally went against the court rulings. What would or could enforcement look like in those scenarios where you're kind of pushing up against it? Because it's clear that they're continuing to try to do this, and that is very much part of the strategy.
He was a criminal.
I have a hard time answering that one. I get that question all the time. I think this is the place where I think it is especially critical that leaders at all levels are going to have to decide whether or not we still have a democracy or we don't, whether or not we've gone over the cliff. Because the reality is that, one of the things, the famous line from President Andrew Jackson about, the Supreme Court's made their ruling, now let's see where their army is to enforce it, is something we mock in many ways, because the idea has always been that, of course, our leaders will follow and abide by lawful court orders. I think we're in a moment now where, we've seen, there was just a recent study that was done that suggested that the administration is obfuscated or defied or walked right up to the line to find, more than 1/3 of the court orders that have been issued against them in just these few months. So I think enforcement in that place really becomes about a collective will. I don't think it's going to come from the courts necessarily. I don't think it's going to come from,
Right. You hear that, Lamont? Right. He was trafficking people. Yeah.
Because people will collectively
See,
speak up and suggest that
they don't tell that part.
Our administration using our tax dollars in our money, acting in a reckless and a lawless way.
Yeah, he was trafficking people. He was selling drugs. Yes. Beating women.
For that case, it was one very publicized case, and there's a lot of people who are in very similar positions that need to have that legal defense to be emailing everyone, calling everyone to be like, what are you doing with my client? And again, to highlight the need for legal defense, legal representation, because that attorney, that Department of Justice accredited rep, will be the person that is calling, emailing, blowing up these agencies to get answers about their client. All of that also feeds into litigation. We inform a lot of what we see with our client cases for our litigation cases, and it keeps, again, holding the agency accountable and having someone asking questions about this person who is missing, who has not been heard of, what conditions they are in detention centers, which are expected to be already horrible. People are not getting the basic care that they need, medications that they need, care that they need here in the United States either, as we've heard a couple of examples of what is happening at CCOT. And so,
what about the American jails?
Attorney that can advocate in those spaces consistently
right here on 26 in California.
Is necessary and, again, as I mentioned earlier, helps.
She lying.
What's happening, what taxes are being used, how people are being treated.
Absolutely. Also, if through the chair you're able to send kind of any examples of communication, because I do think that whether we've got lawyers looking to do pro bono support or neighbors looking to figure out what they can do on everything that's happening, I think to both of your points, when there's such a challenge identifying what enforcement looks like, it is very much incumbent on the public to be vocal. And we have neighbors who
Please be vocal, guys.
may not know what part they can play in the whole ecosystem. And so I think the more information we get, the better we can help kind of broadcast that to folks.
We need Americans to be vocal about this garbage.
I think, you know, for many of us who do this work every day, it's even more critical that we speak out and lift up these stories and these narratives, because as Cecilia sort of pointed to, there are entire communities who are just paralyzed with fear and unable to.
Our
And I
community.
think that it really makes it incumbent on those of us who have, you know, the privilege of being able to do this either, you know, as a career or alternately, you know, are not necessarily directly threatened, to be able, you know, to do that in every way that we can. I think that's the other element of this that, you know, we have to be looking for and looking to as a community.
Yeah, no, I agree. Also, I'm reminded of when we were having the budget summit, where people that are doing the most direct work are also inundated and overwhelmed with that work. And so, part of like the communication out, the broadcasting, I think that's part where we can help play. I feel there was a moment where you had a lot of volunteers doing a lot of mutual aid work who were so inundated trying to provide the actual services and resources, they couldn't broadcast and get the word out to other people who wanted to help. And so I think trying to figure out what that part of the play is, because I can't even imagine what your desks look like, to make sure that we can figure out how we can help. And so that would be helpful. Also, anything related to history. I think people, and this has kind of been my experience, are either disconnected from their own immigrant stories and in this moment because of everything else going on, aren't necessarily focused. But to your point related to what happens when governments can't find enforcement, I don't think there's a lot of knowledge as to the rest of the globe and history and how that's occurred, that I think really get people on notice to learn how this can slide, but also what people can do to kind of step up and speak out in this moment of support. So I really do appreciate that. What I'll do now is open it up to our members, and for a moment, all the members of the executive will fight here. Any questions from our members? Alderman Hack?
I'm gonna wait for Chair Rodriguez to call me here, right? Okay, thank you, all right. Thank you, chairs, and thank you to our panelists today. Ed and Carla and team, I like seeing you guys, but I've really not been happy about the reason why you have to come and visit us lately. And a couple things that came up, and I'll say, representing the 49th Ward, you know, one thing I want to lift up, and this is for the public record, and as a reminder, immigration, migration, and how people come to the country in the 49th Ward. We have people representing pretty much probably every continent and sub-area around the world. We have been first home for waves of immigrants from all over the place, and I think it's important that, I know it's, you know, sometimes from the public's perspective, or I'll say from the very large platform of the current federal administration, there's a lot of misinformation about immigrants, about what the process is, right? I was just sharing with our summer intern here. Permanent residents, people in citizenship process, green card holders, people on work visas, student visas, there's so many complex layers to status, and they're all represented here in Chicago and certainly in the 49th Ward. I've got green card holders and permanent residents from Austria and Germany and Ireland and India and South Korea, right? I've got immigrants from probably probably a good 60% of the African continent, you know, Mexico.
We got to get these people up out of here.
Caribbean,
Look at Maria hat.
people from everywhere. It's very hard to be, quote unquote, I'll say illegal, right, in this country. And by hard, I mean, we have a pretty strong system of managing our borders. So if somebody is there from another country and they are going through an immigration process, they're not illegal, they're going through our immigration.
You hear this delusion? Do y'all hear this delusion? This is an elected official.
We would like order here. We are trying to listen
Free
to our colleagues
speech!
speak. And your speech is out of order, ma'am.
You're out of order. I'm already suing you. I'm already suing you. I'll sue you
And
again.
now I'm going to ask that you're removed.
No.
Nuh-uh.
Please be patient.
Oh, so you all are down here fighting. So you're down here fighting for illegal aliens, free speech, but they putting us out. She just put us out, y'all. Look at this. So they're down here advocating for illegal aliens to have free speech and their due process and constitutional right, and yet they're getting ready to put us out.
Y'all ain't here for this whole meeting is about free speech and violation of due process.
No, how? How?
This whole meeting is about violation of free speech and due process for illegals. But we gotta get kicked out.
We gotta
Our
get
free
kicked out.
speech. Yeah.
Because they don't like if we say something.
Violation of
If
free
we say
speech,
something,
no warning.
Now
I'm
listen,
already
you-
suing you. I'm already suing Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez for the exact same thing. She's telling me to go out again. No. I will add you to the lawsuit again.
now you just had these
Yeah,
people
I will
over
add
here
you. This is
saying
the second
they suing Trump. They got 22 lawsuits on
That's
President
exactly-
Trump,
that's-
and
yeah.
now we're getting ready to put
This is
lawsuits on them.
hypocritical. You can't
No.
have a meeting about free speech and due process for illegal immigrants while kicking us out for our free speech.
You can't
I'm
do
already
it.
suing her for that. I will amend the complaint. I will call my lawyer as soon as I walk out of here and amend the complaint again and add you, Vasquez.
Ain't nobody playing.
Yeah, I really advise y'all to y'all not giving warnings. They're not giving warnings. They're not giving anything.
Look, we want to make sure everyone's got their right.
Yeah, they're not getting, and y'all not doing it.
Well, we have the public comment to be able to do so. I really want to make sure that you all get.
Hey, I'm just trying to tell you, I will contact my attorney.
When when every meeting you have people in here
Yeah,
clapping,
as long
you
as-
have
as
people
long-
saying
as
stuff.
long as they good with what y'all doing, y'all agenda is good. If anybody opposes y'all agenda,
You gotta go.
Be first to kick us out.
I have zero problem whether you oppose or not. You have
Yeah, so
every
we
right-
need a warning? You need a warning first. We didn't get no warning. She just don't like me and I don't like her. So the feeling's mutual.
Ms. Lee, if you may, because I walked in your
Yeah,
room.
the complaint will be amended.
Okay, I'm perfectly okay with
Piece
you
of
all
shit.
participating and being a part of the hearing. It is why we have the hearings. Whether somebody is in agreement or in disagreement, it is absolutely your right to do so. You have every right to speak. We have public comment for that time, so all I'm asking is that we can have the hearing, because the information here, whether you agree with it or not, is actually helpful for your case, that you want to make the people agree with you.
Exactly, because you're about to be
But
adding another lawsuit because of her.
understand that.
I'm already suing her for
Well,
violation of the same thing that y'all are in here fighting for.
Illegals.
So what I would you is just the equal amount of
Okay,
respect people want to talk.
all right,
That's it.
okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank
Peace.
you very much.
Thank you.
We're gonna
Thank
talk
you.
about that
Thank you. Thank you. I love you.
But
That's my man right there.
I will add this. Allow these folks to speak. You have all the freedom of speech and comment after. Just please don't interrupt when they're talking to you. Okay?
Okay. We can respect that. That's respectable. Yes, that's respectable. Okay. Look at this garbage. You all please share this. Yeah, see, this is what they do. This is what they do.
Don't care. It's city money.
This is what these people do. I keep telling y'all, we got to get these people up out of here. We have to get this. We're in a dire situation. If these people don't get voted out this next election, I'm telling you, it's over for Chicago. You see how hard they're fighting for illegal aliens and all their rights. They have not did anything for it, and you know they're getting ready to go up on our taxes, our property taxes. They have not did anything to help the Chicago citizens, the citizens. Yet and still, they put in lawsuits against Trump because he's coming in here and won't give these illegal aliens our tax dollars money and won't give them no federal aid. And you see them, you hear it out their own mouths. They're using our tax dollars to fund these illegal aliens to give them free everything. Trump cut the funding for that, and they're down here advocating and putting in lawsuits. When was the last time they made legislation for you? When was the last thing they passed laws and policies for you, Chicagoans? You voted these people in. These people work for you, the Chicago citizens. But yet, every law, every policy they're trying to pass is to protect illegal aliens while infringing on our freedom of speech. Now they're down here advocating. This is what the meeting is about, you all, for the freedom of speech of illegal aliens. This is what this meeting is about. The freedom of speech and due process for illegal aliens. All while they just tried to take our freedom of speech. All while they just tried to violate the Chicago citizens' freedom of speech. This is the hypocritical things about these people.
Rest in peace to the progressive Democrats who don't know the U.S. Constitution.
That's a slap in your face. That's a slap in our face. How you all down here?
I got gangs of lawyers now. Let's go. Let's play this game.
How you all down here advocating for illegal aliens, freedom of speech and due process, but yet and still trying to take ours, citizens, our taxpayer citizens. We pay for this building.
Slave-ass black people.
This is our building.
It's crazy too.
This is our building. We pay for this building. The taxpayer. Look at her. Maria Hatton. Make sure y'all vote her up out of here.
Please stop cooning.
This is her. This is y'all. Look at her. Please, Chicago, if we don't get this right this election, please, we're going to show you all.
All because y'all won't settle my family's case.
But they talking about illegal aliens due process.
Y'all violated my godfather's due process, my mother's due process, my due process, Miss Jessica's due process. Like, are y'all Michael Young Bay's due process, George Blakemore's due process? Y'all have the nerve to start to have a meeting about people who are not. They are committing a crime as soon as they hit.
When they cross the border.
Like, what part of that don't y'all understand? Y'all cannot manipulate the U.S. Constitution for y'all peoples, but then forget about the American citizens. Like, it don't work like that, progressives.
Yeah, this is what they think.
That's because they ain't teaching nobody in school. But y'all want it like that. Y'all want to teach them about LGBTQ. They don't know how to read. They don't know how to write. They can't comprehend the U.S. Constitution, what it stands for. They don't know their laws. But y'all literally let this man that y'all keep calling Trump a white supremacist. Biden is a white supremacist. He opened up the border and let 20 million people over here and put them in our community.
And he's lying. Everything this man right there just said, he lied about everything. They received due process. They received due process. That's what he's not telling you. He's lying. They received it. The judge said that they were not liable for asylum. Now see, look at him. I bet you he won't put them in his community. I bet you he won't put them in his community. I bet you they not where he live at. I bet you they not around him. I bet you he don't have to worry about criminals being in his community. Look at him. I bet you he not worried about that. But he want them all in our community. Look at this person. Right here. I'm talking about him with the blue suit on. But I bet you they not in his community. I bet you he don't have one illegal alien in his community.
White weird liberals, you Hispanic and the cool ass black politicians. failures. Y'all have failed.
And he over here advocating for them to be all in our community. That's the garbage right there. That's the garbage.
Thank you very much. We are now, we can begin,
Rosanna.
Alderwoman Henn,
Big
with
James.
you for a question.
All right, so we'll try this again. As I was saying, so the June 4th incident where third party lured people in to be abducted by ICE, you know, one of my constituents was that too. This is just for example, he was a Cameroonian national, lived here for 10 years in a legal immigration process with an immigration attorney, married to a U.S. citizen, expecting a child in a couple of months, right? Most of the people that I represent and engage with, like, these are their stories, these are their situations. And I know that the right-wing media, people on their YouTube channels, you know, President Trump, who thinks we're going to reduce drug prices by 1,000%, people. There's a lot of miseducation, misinformation, wrong information being perpetrated. And I understand it's easy for people to get caught in that. So from your experiences, I'm just wondering if you have information or through the chair to direct us to such information as to, you know, folks that you're working with or representing, how many people are, of the people that you've been representing, already going through a legal immigration process? I don't know if you could speak to that or share that information with the chair.
All of our clients are going through an immigration process, whether that's having filed a U-Visa petition that's currently pending that has a very long backlog that raises issues around how the agency is processing applications to individuals who are fighting their cases in court. And we also have clients that have been renewing their temporary protected status, for example, for over a decade. So all of our clients have an avenue, are either waiting, have an application pending, or we're actively arguing their cases, waiting for a court hearing. They're actively participating in being able to obtain legal status and are invested in following the laws of the United States, have been very grateful of the opportunities that they've had here. They want to be positive members of our society and contribute and do good. And so all of our clients are on that path, and we have served over 10,000 clients in our history, and that from our clients we have not seen a change or waiver in that commitment to the country.
Just two things that was spurred by your comment. I would note that the Miami Herald recently did an analysis of the people being held in a place called Alligator Alcatraz and discovered that the majority of them have no criminal record beyond traffic enforcement matters.
Legal.
And secondly,
They're legal.
In terms of, you know, there have been some studies about the people who've been deported that has looked at the numbers again that, you know, that there are not people, that the vast majority of people who've been detained and deported have not had serious criminal records. And so I think that, you know, it's one of the things I think to keep lifting up that, as you say, the kind of stories you're talking about are the kinds of ones that we're seeing. There's just one other thing, and forgive me, you know, one of the benefits of being an old man at this point is I've lived long enough to see a lot of things. And, you know, over the last 40 years in this country, we've had this discussion where when we hear regularly that somehow if somebody else gets a right or gets something, it takes something away from me. And we act like, especially with rights and protections, you know, that's going to happen. In the late 90s and early 2000s, I was assured by people like, you know, Rick Santorum that if gay and lesbian couples were allowed to marry, that my marriage would fall apart. I'm still happily married for at least I think I'm happy. I can't speak for my wife. But, you know, the idea that somehow there's some trade-off here in this is just nonsense. And when we make it like, when we make that question, when we divide it that way, it is the thing that causes us to point at other people and suggest that they shouldn't get the same rights.
Says your rich white liberal.
And I worry that about that, what that friction and what that does to all of us as a society.
It's a race to the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Fear, can make us race to the bottom. I had another constituent stop in my office, last week before, lived in the country for several years. She's here on a work visa, and she is from Vietnam. And she went on a vacation with friends to St. Thomas. And on her way back into the country, was detained, held in Puerto Rico in a detainment facility for more than a month, without.
Of course, they not in his neighborhood. None of these white liberals. They want them all in our neighborhoods.
They detained her because they didn't like the political speech on her social media account. In the meantime, she's lost everything.
She'll lie.
Job, housing, things of that sort. So just to your point, I know that.
Yeah, we're a joke to them because we don't come out, we don't vote, we don't get these people up out of here, we don't come out to these meetings and let our voices be heard. Yeah, we're a joke to these people.
Right? We always have to lift up, and we didn't come here to some immigration story, the story of enslavement, the story of diaspora, the story of a lot of harms, right? It's a different story for our indigenous Americans.
What is she talking
and so
about?
I know that that's an easy wedge where I might not connect with someone's immigration story because myself or my ancestors didn't have a choice. And of course, we have a lot of systemic issues in this country, in the state, in the city, that are still burdening us, that still keep us down, that exclude us, that discriminate against us, that harm us. But it is, I think, important, to your point, and we're not going to get there by taking away the freedom and the rights of others in our experience, because this is also going to be used against us. It is being used against us, right? We have folks who are citizens, folks who are facing detainment, violence, and if we allow due process to be suspended for anyone,
Do y'all notice they never say the folks that are citizens that's being sent and deported? They never say their names. They never say who it is.
That's why we have organizations like the ACLU. That's why we have these conversations.
ACLU.
And council, because you don't have to have been around for a long time and know to know. All I have to do is talk to my parents. All I have to do is talk to, my grandparents, remember the stories that they would tell. Like, guys, this is not rocket science. They're coming for all of us.
They're not coming for. Look at these lies.
Right, with lies. And we need
Look at these lies. The fear mongering.
Educate and inform ourselves, and of course, hold down our constitutional rights.
That's what we doing. That's what we doing.
Following our laws here and to really stand our ground, because we have to combat this misinformation. So I appreciate the mayor's team and the work that you all are doing here, because this is an ongoing attack at the very roots of our democracy. I don't want to live in a country where my neighbor can be kidnapped.
Go leave. Go leave back to your country.
Because someone reported them, because they thought they were illegal. I've got constituents in my ward.
Look at this
who
lies.
are stuck into this right-wing fantasy world, who threatened my wife. Oh, is she illegal? encourage people.
This lady is lying.
It's wild, it's deluded, right? Like, why and what has happened to people to not want to fight for their rights, but to want to fight and tear down and take away others? We will all be in the same terrible bottom of the barrel if we can't go on the same page and standing up for each other's rights. So this is not an issue of race. This is an issue of rights, of our Constitution, and, you know, the type of country that we aim to be. So I appreciate Alderwoman Rodriguez Sanchez and Chairman Vasquez for continuing to bring up this issue. We have to keep talking about it.
Yeah, two things.
Look at this.
You know, one of the things I think is that when you act in a reckless and quick way, that one of the things we're already seeing across the country is, you know, there are United States citizens who have been swept up and detained.
What's their name?
For a period of time, only for ICE to discover that they're U.S. citizens, and there's not even an apology that accompanies
And they-
that action.
Look at this.
The second thing, you said this, I can't help but observe, you know, I've been doing this work in this role for, you know, more than a quarter of a century. It's always a little interesting for me to be in this chamber, in this body, because some of my critiques of the way that the city has been policed in different neighborhoods hasn't always made me very popular here. And so, you know, we have to call this out wherever we see it,
Look at
right?
this.
We don't get to choose. We don't get to pick and choose. And I think that, you know, the stories of, you know, in the same way that candidly, the stories of people who are being stopped at our border because of their political views on social media, I don't want them punished in the same way I didn't want people punished after January 6th just because they said something. I think
Let them move in his neighborhood.
I fiercely defended. I've spent my adult life doing it. But you know, I think the idea of saying that we're gonna set a new standard and that you know decide who can come into the country and not based on their speech is a really dangerous thing.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other members have questions? Alderman Casella.
Thank you, Chair. First, just want to thank all our advocates for their great work. We're living in unprecedented times, and we need people with the moral clarity and courage to stand up against any kind of threat to basic decency and human rights. So I just want to thank you all for what you do day in, day out. Let's be clear, the attack on immigrants currently and throughout history, especially right now, is not only an attack on human rights and basic decency, but it is also a clear distraction from the Trump administration's agenda to enrich his billionaire friends at the expense of everyone else.
Yeah, look at the same.
Something more insidious is being perpetrated.
Talking points.
There is this normalization of authoritarianism.
Look at the same talking points.
There is erosion of constitutional law and democracy. And above all, there is this legalization of cruelty that has moved our nation into a new era.
Hold on, y'all. I gotta charge my
For
phone.
all of us today to highlight these conversations is to help memorialize these tragedies, quite frankly. My deepest fear is that the situation that we're in can get worse. We're only a couple months into this administration.
Yep.
And I
We got
think
some
that
years
they're
ago.
to play an end game. I think that they're trying to move their chips in the judicial branch, the legislative branch, the executive branch, to consolidate more of their power.
Yep. Vote
to
these people
utilize
out.
these scapegoat culture wars, these xenophobic campaigns to distract people from who the real enemy is.
Right. All talking
to make us
points.
turn against each other. To have people who otherwise normally wouldn't be, apologists for fascist wannabes turn against their own neighbors.
Look at that.
And people who would rather spend their time coming out to things like this and just lie about our neighbors and just,
Like they doing.
avoid any accountability for their idolatrous leaders. But we need to be really crystal clear about what this body needs to do and what our city and what our nation needs to do at this time. Future generations will look back
Yes,
and
they
access
will.
what we did in this moment.
Yes, they will.
And it's really clear that this administration is trying to do anything that they can to outlaw any dissent, to outlaw speech, to outlaw resistance, and that's what fascist dictators do all the time. So I really want to commend my colleagues for bringing this conversation forward. I guess, some of the questions that I have, and I think we kind of went through some of the things that we could be doing, like the amicus briefs, encouraging our federal officials, making ICE, officials identify themselves. I think a question that I have, just so that we can really highlight it for this body to take action around, is how has the impact of the growing demand for legal resources impacted or impeded access to those legal resources?
See?
And what kind of need do you all have, and what kind of role can our state and our county and our city play in absence of this, federal government? So I think that's my first question. Can you just highlight again, what is that need materially, and how have you seen that increase of demand historically, and what kind of role can we be playing to help you all out?
The need that we're seeing is just representation, but not only just that, but also for people that may not have relief options. So for example, someone might be in immigration court proceedings, and they could be eligible for a U visa. So there's an application that can be applied for, that there's a service that can be done. But unfortunately, if there aren't, for example, any relief options, current grants can make it difficult to represent someone because they want how many applications have you filed, for example. So one of the things that we're also fighting for is universal PrEP, in the sense of everyone has access to an attorney, regardless of whether or not there is something that can be fought for. You'll have someone that can represent you, that can give you your options and make an informed decision about what happens next. And one of the initiatives that we have is called NEDA with our partners to provide representation to those who are detained through their entire process. And we receive referrals through the ICER's Family Support Hotline. And so being creative about how we can get representation to folks broadly is one of the things that are needed, and just really the funding to be able to do that. Like I mentioned, we're also working with our partners to kind of bring in pro bono support. And what's making it difficult is just finding how to plug them in with these enforcement actions happening so quickly. And so having, again, coming back to funding, to be able to put thought into how do we create those systems. We're doing the best with what we have right now in the sense of brainstorming. We work together with partners at the state level, as well to be able to develop a system, for example, on how we can get pro bono support on habeas petitions for people who are being detained and have that rapid response. So those are just some of the ideas that came to mind. Welcome any clarifying questions.
Now, how many can legal citizens, Chicagoans, call those numbers and get representation?
I would prefer to see that her answer was thoughtful and thorough.
I bet you we'll get denied if we needed legal representation.
I think that there is this mischaracterization whenever we talk about the need to help people understand the constitutional rights. Some people always like to pigeonhole that conversation, thinking that we're only looking out for people with mixed immigration statuses or different immigration statuses.
You do.
But really, this is a thing about all American citizens.
No, it's not.
So what kind of recommendations do you have for us to better normalize that conversation and to maybe spread that education for our communities?
Oliver, thank you. It's a really good question. And I think one of the things that we have been thinking a lot about is how to broaden the conversation, because a lot of the abuse of power that we're seeing is not limited just to the immigration space. I mentioned that the ACLU has filed 27 lawsuits in the immigration space, but we filed more than 67 in the 6 months in which the administration has been in office. So I think one of the things is going back to a little bit of a
So all this time that Biden was in office, you didn't file no lawsuits
you know,
against how he opened that border and let 22 million illegals in.
To do a number of town hall meetings with federal representatives over the last few months. What is fascinating is just the concerns that people have about the structure of the government itself and the way that power is being coalesced into the hands of just the White House and just one person. And so, you know, I think at the local level, that might be something, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it, is thinking about like town hall meetings where you just talk about, you know, what the structure of government is and the threat that comes to any of us when that power is abused, when the power of any one branch is abused and not kept in check. I think that's one discussion that we can have, because that discussion ought to outlive whatever happens with this particular administration, right? That's always a threat that is with us. So I think that is a place that is happening. And the other part of that is that, you know, again, I think we also need to let people ventilate, as Alderwoman Haney was talking about, the concerns and the grievances that they feel. Because I think in some ways, too, it helps when people do that to hear the thoughts of others and the concerns of others and the experiences of others. I think it just makes us all more empathetic for one another. And goodness knows we need more sympathy and empathy in our society these days.
I really appreciate you just getting back to the fundamentals. And I think that's what's really discouraging about the moment that we're in, is that really, you know, I think the environment that we find ourselves in with these extremities is a reflection of social decay. I think that social decay has been a long time making. I mean, it's built into the foundations and fabric of this nation, from the enslavement of Black people to the genocide of Native Americans to the civil rights movement to the women's suffrage movement to the labor rights movement. We have been in constant tension with one another, but I think where we find ourselves now in the second Gilded Age, where so much wealth and power has been consolidated to a minute few, our communities are left to fight for scraps. And I think that a lot of old pains and current pains are being brought up, and I think a lot of scapegoating is happening between the communities, and it's hurtful, it's painful. And I yearn for the day where we can all have peace and prosperity.
We can get rid of these illegals and get them out of our community and stop letting foreigners get into these seats who don't care about the American citizens.
And that's why I'm very afraid of right now. And I think that the conversation that we're having today is, again, super important for us to memorialize. Because these very same conversations could be looked at 50 years from now, 100 years from now, as the moment that our country entered. The
moment America woke up and American Chicago took their city back. The moment the American citizens and Chicago citizens took their city back. Sure, yeah, you're correct.
I want to thank my colleagues, especially Chair on the hearing that we had about the attacks on our public health system right now, and Chair Maria Haddon, thank you for taking time also.
What is she talking about?
The moment we are here today, and the need for us to memorialize where we are. I also want to thank those of us that are here and speaking. Thank you, Carla, for being here from the mayor's office, and Jesus, and Cecilia from NIJC. I know that you're working really hard, not only with individuals who are grassroots across the nation, who really are just regular folks that want to get involved, and they found it locally. The local power is how we're going to protect our democracy by getting people civically engaged. And I want to especially thank Bianca, who in 2016, who was very kind to somebody like me who started an indivisible chapter locally and in the state of Illinois. And we have to remember where we have been. And so thank you for that. I do appreciate your comments about getting to the fundamentals and how is it that we are structured, because that is really it. It's how we can affect our systems that we have today, because that is truly how we are being attacked. They are using the systems that we have against us, and people are silently disappearing. And that includes in our institutions, such as our educational systems and Illinois.
They were here illegally, and they were detained and sent back to their hometown, homeland, home country.
My classmates, they're not coming back, they're just disappearing. And so what is it that we can teach people?
You can teach people to, if you break the law to come over here, you can self-deport.
We can't do this alone.
That way you can go back to where you came from, because if you don't self-deport and ICE have to catch you, then wherever you go is wherever you go. No criminal have the right to say where they can go and how they supposed to live. We can't do it as Americans.
To those who are listening who don't usually come to city council meetings, there are so many things that you could do. And one of them includes protecting free speech through supporting our local independent news media, especially ethnic media.
Look at this.
We have to do that because for some whose language is not first, English is not their first language, that is where they're getting their information, and that's how they're getting informed. So I do want to thank those that spoke earlier today.
That's the problem. We don't have enough freedmen to come out and stand up for themselves. Frederick, that's the problem. All the freedmen brothers and sisters, they're too busy saying that they're oppressed. They're too busy hating Trump.
Again, our structures and how we put people in powerful positions in our system, and it points to how we are structured with our, how are we protecting voters' rights, and how are we protecting the integrity of our elections. So I would like to continue to have these conversations with you all, with our board office and affiliates, where we welcome you in Edgewater and Uptown. Anytime that you're there, we would love to have you and figure out ways that we can continue this conversation at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any members have any further questions? As questions are not concluded, I want to thank my colleague, Arwen Rodriguez Sanchez, for bringing this resolution to the committee. I also want to thank all the panelists, really for taking the time to meet here in the hearing, given the amount of work you all have separate from this. I can't thank you enough. I hope that all of you are able to find time for yourselves, because as we stated prior, we're a couple months into a 4-year term, so we want to make sure that y'all are in it for the long haul. You guys are the front lines, and so I personally thank you and appreciate the work that you do. So that being said, we will let you all. Oh, absolutely. Sorry, yeah, absolutely.
I really want to show appreciation for Carla and Jesus for being here today and for all the city is doing to fight this agenda that we find ourselves facing. We want to be able to collaborate as much as we can to get the best possible outcomes, and we really appreciate your presence here today.
Okay, so we will go to the final item today. It is item number 1, a brief update on activities undertaken by this committee, as well as a quick presentation from the Office of Immigrant, Migrant, Refugee Rights on their work in the African diaspora communities. The matter will, as no votes that have been taken, we are getting the presentation up.
He the one said nigga. He said nigga.
Social decay.
He said social decay. He said nigga.
Okay,
This is him.
We'll go into the work
right
I
there.
don't want to talk about
We've been
African
engaged for the past
diaspora.
quarter.
I don't want to talk about African diaspora. Okay.
Go to the first slide. All right, so as we kind of went through on the agenda, we went through what our hearing was today. The rights report, we're going to go over the Know Your Rights training works that happened, immigration briefing, our support for detained constituents, and legislative and advocacy priorities. And then we will be speaking to Neka Obasi, Senior Analyst with the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Rights. All right, so to give folks background, we had actually our second hearing this month as a prior hearing in covering the subject matters and we're not able to get to this quarter reporting. So we've done a number of trainings for different communities, whether it's alders and staff to understand how to access resources and provide information in this moment, to nonprofits and community-based organizations, businesses, parents, students. We also focus on doing language-specific training, so Spanish, Haitian Creole, Hindi, Urdu, and Arabic, and as well as LGBTQIA community. We've done 15
Exactly, Furniture. That's exactly.
in the year so far. Currently, given some concerns and threats, we are looking to identify safety protocols and doing some of the Know Your Rights training and information. As we get all that determined, we will communicate out any updates. In addition, we also have monthly briefings on immigration updates that are impacting Chicagoans. Those are held on third Tuesday of every month. Around average, we've had about 100 to 200 people attend each of the meetings. The topics include enforcement trends, immigration policy, and we have immigration attorneys who then are there to answer questions. It is open to the public, again, the third Tuesday of every month. Our next briefing is August 19th at 1 p.m. And people can register at bit.ly/CIRR briefing. We will also make that available to folks through our
So they're having seminars for illegal aliens.
newsletter as well as our website, welcometochicago.org. So the committee has also created an immigration enforcement reporting and detention support guide, which includes information for Chicago area municipal offices, so your ward offices as well as others, on how to report ICE activity, how to locate a constituent that has been detained by ICE, how to submit inquiries with a detained constituent's congressional representatives, legal support, resources, and other avenues in which community members can get involved in supporting undocumented neighbors in the community. You can find that guide at bit.ly/CIRR Immigrants Support Guide. We've actually been sharing with other cities across the country as well and doing best practice sharing and learning. So very appreciative of the information. We know there's so much happening so often in real time. We want to make sure that there's a resource for folks who may need it. Similarly, we will share that out in the newsletter and we have welcometochicago.org. On July 25th, so tomorrow, we're hosting a roundtable for staff of Chicago area elected officials to share information on how to respond to immigration enforcement and support constituents who are targeted by ICE. So attendees for that roundtable will be congressional staff from our Illinois delegation, the governor's office staff, state representative and senator staff, and staff from county as well as city board offices. We want to thank Congressman Quigley and Senator Durbin for co-hosting. And so when we have conversations, I know.
So you got Senator Dick Durbin. That's why I told you all they must go.
We are engaged as is the Office of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights with the staff to make sure that there is the communication necessary to effectively move forward in the moment that we find ourselves. So similarly, we also partner through external advocacy engagement. We partner with immigrant groups to provide resources and advocate for immigrant refugee rights. So the recent efforts include the Chicago Refugee Task Force, which we chair with Clerk Ana Valencia as well as Deputy Mayor Beatriz Ponce de Leon. We had a Latino Unity Day in Springfield, where members of the committee went to go speak to our state folks in relation to what they saw going on and how we can partner. We also had our Chicago African Summit and Resource Fair, as well as the Future of Western Avenue Public Transit Town Hall. So a lot of different avenues to have these conversations and partnering up with different ones get different events on the calendar, we'll be sharing that information as well. So now we want to pivot over to kind of the legislative work we've been doing here at the committee. I want to make sure that our colleagues and committee members are aware in case they want to partner on any of this work or want to present any other things to the committee. So we've been working through different categories. I think first and foremost is protecting immigrant and refugee communities from like Trump overreaches and really unconstitutional actions. So looking at the Welcoming City Ordinance compliance, I think those of you have seen there was an incident on June 4th where we want to look and identify how things occurred. I think it is also important to memorialize what work has been done when the right calls are being made, but also things that we can learn from what has been really unprecedented activity. And so in putting forth the order to call for the data body-worn camera information related to the June 4th incident, although one of our colleagues two of our colleagues deferred and published the matter, as Mayor Johnson stated recently in a press conference, the order is not required to get that information, so we are engaging with the mayor's office to the best of our ability to get some of that information in the interest of public transparency.
So this is the legislative priorities.
A data privacy audit, so how the city protects identity information. We know that similarly, there has been a FOIA from the Department of Homeland Security to CCD, and so having conversations related to what information can be given, what is our transit, when we're talking about people seeking reproductive health becoming in the city, that we do everything possible to
So
protect
they might legislative laws or policies. Chicagoans. Look at it.
A resolution calling on the state to pass legislation related to beds and masks, due process, and making sure that when these things are moving forward, that people are identified.
It's supporting migrant entrepreneurs and street vendors.
Maybe have the best intent, or maybe the state might impersonate ICE agents in order to do things. That we've seen stories of even elected officials being attacked by those who seek to impersonate law enforcement. So we want to make sure that that is just, again, accountability. Separately from those, we're also looking
to
supporting migrant and mobile entrepreneurship. So looking at street vendor legislation. So you've got food carts where food is prepared differently based on different cultures, but also it's challenging whether you're undocumented or from another culture, or just trying to be an entrepreneur who doesn't want to do a storefront, but just wants to do a mobile cart somewhere.
Wow.
Establishing the rules and guidelines to help make it easy to do things the legal route, but also make sure enforcement is in place, and we're thinking about the spaces where that can occur, so that people aren't just being shut off and said that they can't operate.
Wow.
Although we want everyone to have the ability to sustain themselves, we think it's crucial to get this information and also legislation moving forward. And want to thank the mayor's office for their partnership and that work. We're also looking at peddler outreach. So this is more related to some of the folks that you see on the street, whether they're selling candies or they're coming into storefronts and businesses looking to do so. There's concerns about not only, from small business owners, but really the concerns about what might be potentially child or other trafficking efforts. So what we're doing currently is partnering with different organizations to canvas along the areas, to develop relationships, to be able to provide resources, and really make people feel comfortable should they need to access resources related to public safety. We also want to make sure that there's information to our small businesses to have a better understanding of what these dynamics are, what the resources are who they can reach out to, because in the absence of feeling that they've got other resources, we are concerned that people who are vulnerable will be further criminalized. So being able to find different ways to de-escalate, to have communication happen, to really communicate with
Boy, look how hard they're fighting for these illegal aliens. They're coming up with new laws, new policies. Wow. They have not implemented any laws or policies for the American citizens or Chicagoans. Down down here. Only thing they're getting ready to propose is our property taxes go up. Coming up in this next budget.
Share some of the work happening related to the African diaspora. It is the intent and hope for this committee to really create more intentional space to be able to share what's going on. Because I think often, although we're talking about immigrants and undocumented immigrants in general, people often think it is only a Latino issue, even though we all know it isn't. And so we want to make sure and be clear that creating the intentional space to hear what's going on as related to the African diaspora is heard by everyone, so that we can find opportunities to partner.
She's not from here.
And the Committee on Immigrant Refugee Rights, all officials, city officials present, and members of the public. Thank you for this opportunity to talk a little bit about the work I've been doing as senior community liaison at the Office of Immigrant Migrant Refugee Rights. And as Chairman said, my name is Nicole Bassi. Just an overview of my role as senior community liaison is to, one of the main things is for me to improve services to diverse immigrant, migrant, refugee communities in Chicago, and kind of nurture their sense of belonging, because a lot of times people feel unseen and unheard. And the largest part of my bucket is African immigrants and the African diaspora, including the islands, South America, and so on. My role is also to increase the engagement in these communities, so that we can have collaboration with them, know what their issues are, and the various community-based organizations and institutions, and so on. And this also includes international organizations and diplomatic missions. And generally, my role is to prioritize persons of African diaspora origin in Chicago, as well as new arrivals. So established communities, as well as the people that are just getting here. And in addition to that role, the following goals are to facilitate strong connections.
You said what's going on?
ANG,
what'd you say?
So to kind of bridge the way that African diaspora residents assimilate with other communities. To know what their unique challenges are. There's, what one group faces is not always what another faces. So to really understand and address issues and challenges that are unique to these communities, to advocate for and promote equitable access to city services and programs. A lot of times, because of things like language barriers, just essentially or those that I have not been able to connect to in the African diaspora community. In support of African diaspora communities, I try to go to the events, so Haitian Flag Day, and also the African Global Chambers of Commerce. They had their Africa Day celebration. Africa Day is a UN declared holiday, which marks the time in 1963 that African countries started to be free from colonization. And so on that day, 25th of May, in 1963 was when they formed the African Union. So, and then I attend monthly meetings of African Immigrant Leadership Forum, Black Immigrant Support Network, Chicago Refugee Quarterly, as well as the Illinois Department of Human Rights Black Immigration Task Force meetings. And so just a few pictures from some of these things that I mentioned. I was on the panel at the National Immigrant Inclusion Conference. People really wanted to know about our new arrivals mission in Chicago. We're very proud to have spoken about that. And then international engagement that I have, I engage with several consulates. I have ambassadors and other people reaching out to me because they've heard of one program or other in Chicago and they would like to learn more about it. And so I engaged with them, I engaged with World Business Chicago, Cities International, because people reach out to me and say, oh, we have this amount of our people in Chicago, we would like a consulate. So I helped to connect them to the right people. And I've attended these various leadership forums, the most recent of which is African Ambassadors Economic Forum, where I got to share about the one shelter system in Chicago and also one summer Chicago. It's something that many people internationally want to hear about, and so I was able to share about that, how I was able to help our young youth from immigrant communities to also register and take advantage of that program. And so there is a bid to have the Nigerian consulate in Chicago, and this is the group that came to meet with the mayor to seek his approval of that idea. This is some other. We've been able to build a very strong relationship with the Colombian consulate, and we were able to attend some of their celebrations with staff here who are of Colombian origin as well as the Immigrant team. And we were able to also celebrate Afro-Colombian Day. So, and in this recent leadership forum I was able to meet with the president of St. Martin, that's him in the middle, and the vice president, the lady in the yellow jacket, and connecting with them so that they can connect me to their community here in Chicago and fill me in on their different needs. And then I can refer them to people that can help them out. And these are just a few other events that I've been able to organize. There was such a need among the Senegalese new arrival community for City Keys. There was a lot of language barriers. So I was able to work with this body here and organize a special City Key event at the UAO headquarters for them, participate in Haitian Independence Day. For the first time that we know of, a Global Africa Day was celebrated here at City Hall, a small celebration which
Look at everything these people are advocating for. Everybody except for Americans.
Council helped financially as well as in other ways for that to happen.
Everything
as well as UAO
except for the Chicago citizens.
They helped to fund the refreshments and so on. And we did it on the 4th floor here at City Hall. As I mentioned before, we did have Afro-Colombian Day celebration, and this was at Kennedy King College. And President Katonya Webb Walker was very generous in allowing the use of the space, and her staff also, especially Janice and Hampton mentioned her. And then Peace Swahili Day celebration was at Northern X College. Unfortunately, President Sanders couldn't attend as he unfortunately lost his mother at the same time, so our condolences go out to him. And these are pictures from these various celebrations. I have to say that one of the main things that I get out of this job is the Tanzanian Association, when we're planning World Peace Swahili Day. I don't know what happened, and I apologize to them. They told me, don't ever apologize. Nobody saw us before you. Said no one really knew we existed, and now we feel seen and heard, and that really touched me, because it was just a very simple act of collaborating with them to celebrate their language, which is spoken by 13 countries in Africa, over 300 million people around the world, and also spoken in Oman and Yemen in the Middle East. So it is a language worth celebrating, and they're very appreciative. These are just some other events, like the Guinean flag raising. They've had flag raising before, but the fact that they had a declaration or proclamation from the mayor, it just elevated them. Even though the mayor couldn't be there, and I was there to hand this to them, they felt very elevated. So just little things for communities to feel that they belong. And then another part of my work is finding partners. So now, as some federal funding is being removed from certain things, it becomes even more important to find organizations where we can refer people. So Christopher House, they do get some state funding, but a lot of their funding is private. And this is somewhere that if a child is not allowed to go to Head Start, I would send them to Christopher House. And another organization that does the same thing is Madonna Mission. I don't have them in the slide. So I build a relationship with these organizations so that I can know where to refer people to get services that they may not otherwise get. And as I said, I try to make myself available to go to some other community events. Now, Deputy Mayor Constantine asked me to not to forget to mention the individual cases that I've worked with. So I work one-on-one with individuals to solve their problems. For example, there's a young man who was in need of glasses, but was very new here. And I noticed him squinting. So I asked him why you always squinting, and he said he had contact lenses and he lost them. And so I was able to find
They don't want to hear nothing, so you got
him to get glasses. There was another lady who, due to a cultural misunderstanding,
Everybody left. Everybody left.
and this was extremely
Everybody left, y'all. Look.
So I worked with CNSS and
Everybody left.
Congress, and we were able to get her the right mental evaluations and so on, and then her baby was returned to her. So I just wanted to give those examples that on a day-to-day basis, there are cases like that, and all we need is someone to facilitate getting the right
Look,
services.
y'all notice something? When she got up to speak, look, who do you see there? Everybody, it's empty.
I don't want to say, please follow us on social media.
Where the aldermans?
Social media. And again, I want to thank you so much.
Where Maria Hatton go?
Thank you.
Where Marlena Hopkins go? Where everybody go over there?
My first question, how you find time in the day, given all the work that you've got going on, but, one, I want to really thank you for your work. I want to thank Mayor Johnson for really having the position and being able to do this kind of work. I think it's, not only is it the front line, taking care of people, but it is also, to your point, platforming communities that need to be front and center and typically aren't. As well as making sure that we all understand everything everyone's going through. So, I think my first question is actually for you to share.
Gone.
Is, if you go back to the slide with the organization.
They left. They left.
Yeah, and then while you're doing that, here's what we
Yeah, I was saying, what the black and brown?
Location, address, so that we, as city councilmen, actually know which ones are in our ward or where they're located.
So wait a minute, where did all the aldermen go when she was talking? Where everybody go? They left. They didn't. I guess they didn't want to hear what she had to say.
Look at it, what is it?
As well as any events that are on the calendar that we can be aware of, help spread the word. I'm very honored and fortunate to be there for African Union Day, which was amazing. So yeah, let us know, we'll put it on the calendar and I'll lift it as well.
Nobody's here, who they talking to?
Right. Right.
Nobody's here.
What opportunity do you believe that are members of
The ultimates are gone.
whether through our ward offices or legislatively?
What the hell are you talking about?
Right. What is he?
Thank you very much for the question. I will be thinking.
Nobody's here but you ultimates.
And then, how the alders and members of the council can help is, there are people living in, for example, in your wards. I'll give you an example of a lady.
Who's she talking to?
She wants to provide, in her area, food for the
Lord have
elderly.
mercy.
She's been doing it, and now she's registered 501c3, but she needs space. So,
She's not American black
if you
and
can
white.
let this community can help
She's over here up
like
the
that,
park.
because my knowledge is limited and my ability is limited, but.
She's not a black American.
Help
Nope.
connecting,
Look at her.
me and the people I'm helping with resources.
She's not a black American.
One
She a
thing.
what?
Another thing is to
She's not a black
amplify
American.
events. I would love for you to be able to help amplify
Baby, you're not even
events,
from a, you're not black.
that
American.
come out of these communities.
You're trying to get
or
reparations.
are in service of these communities. And also, just remember that these people of African descent, they are working, they're taxpayers, they're your constituents. And to see them as such and to treat them as such. And yes.
Look at us, great.
They're our bosses, they pay taxes like everybody else. Right? So,
What's so
as
funny?
city employees, we also have to keep that in mind. I think
Nobody's
we
here.
see in different communities,
Too old.
a lot of times when people come from other countries, they are not comfortable even going to government or support systems. So the amount of relationship building you have to do to build that kind of trust is invaluable. So yeah, I think partnering with our office as well as any other city council member offices, send us all of those our way so we can partner up, whether it's seeing who can help fund a storefront or some office space that we might be able to share some opportunities. I speak for myself, but I know talking to a number of our colleagues, we're more than happy to feel a duty to kind of offer
Say
our
what?
places to do.
Kelly Farrell left
Yeah,
and Maria Hagley
I
left.
might, if we're able
There's
to,
only two people, ultimately here.
we'd like to have you be
pathetic.
also the regular part.
All of them gone.
To be able to let
All of them gone.
Even the Hispanic ultimately left.
Mm-hmm.
They left.
I want to be mindful of your time as well, but in order to help amplify those things, if you want to join the show, we can do this every other month or whenever we're doing it.
As much as I
They said she gonna do that every month.
Right. She in the
It's
jail.
honors on mine. Thank you for that. So, members of this committee, if you have questions.
There's nobody here.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your work. You do
Nobody's here.
beautiful, beautiful work, and we're so grateful to you and to the whole office for the work that you are doing. Do you have a partnership plan?
Danielle, there's nobody here for this year.
With who?
The
If,
Global Gardens.
well, last week, to be the zoning, you won't zone
With the Global Gardens, it's a project that
it. Look here.
helps
You can't, we have this meeting and you got 4 people here.
through the practice of their traditional agricultural techniques. And there's people from everywhere there, but there's several people that are from the African diaspora. And I think that they would be very, very happy
It's great.
to be in partnership with you.
But what, next? She's not a
It
black
is a
American.
beautiful project, so I think that you would also love visiting it. So if we can stay in touch, then I can absolutely take you there and we can see what kind of partnerships we
She's
can
probably
create.
trying to
They
get
grow
reparations.
their own food during the summer. They go to farmers markets to sell their food. They have a CSA program
Another
where
lady.
the
What's her
neighbors in the
name?
community can
That's
buy
here.
produce from them, and there's restaurants that also buy
Maria.
That's the top right there.
Maria.
I think
Beatrice, please. Dorian.
The one that's speaking right there.
Yeah. Beatrice
The one that's
posted.
next to this home.
Beatrice posted.
And I connected the families from Central African Republic with them, but this
It's
wasn't a
right
private
here.
role.
It's
I'm not sure it's Global Gardens because I and the other team would
No,
love to.
the
Please,
lady.
thank you.
That's Beatrice posted.
Her name is not Beatrice. Her name is not named Beatrice. No, that she said she's Puerto Rican. Her name is J.O. That was right
Be
there.
able to see it as a presentation.
Oh, I don't know.
All the work that you've been doing. Also the pictures, right? All the work.
It's just
that you
one
guys
lady
do.
sitting there. Her name is not J.O.
We want to make sure.
I don't know. I don't know.
And that, who's that man?
It really is remarkable stuff. And it is an unfortunate reality that
No,
because
his-
You don't know
it's
that.
not necessitated that way.
I can't think of his name.
But I think it's an opportunity and something that we
And that
should
Lopez
appreciate that at
man.
least it's happening. Because we know before this, it might happen occurring before. So I want to thank you as well the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Rights for all the work that
There's
you all do.
nobody here.
I'd say it's thankless work, but we try our best to thank you as much as possible. And you all do a very important service that we do in the city, so thank you.
know who you talking to.
Thank you.
Nobody's
And I
here.
feel that by thanking all of you in this committee for everything that you do.
Oh,
for
no,
all of us.
that's the don't make the one,
Thank you.
say he use the word nigga. Public comment.
Anything the chair follow-up will be sent to all alders pending response from executive departments and the mayor's office. With no further business before the committee, may I have a motion to adjourn? Alderman Casada so moves. Hearing no objections, so ordered. The meeting, the Committee on Immigrant and Refugee Rights is now adjourned.
They didn't have nothing. Didn't nobody show up.
Yeah, this crazy.
Didn't nobody show up for this meeting. Nobody showed up.
Y'all going to jail.
1 o'clock.
Y'all going to jail.
Didn't nobody show up.
Yep, free speech. Going to jail. How dare you
Didn't nobody show
do
up
no
for this
policies for the American citizens, but advocate for illegal aliens?
Y'all go sign up for the next one.
Where at?
meeting supposed to start at 1 o'clock.
Right.
Didn't nobody show up.
All right, y'all, I'm finna get ready to go. You see what happened. Please like and share this video. All right.
Illegal refugees, they wasn't even down here. They didn't show up.
So what they did was, everything they did is advocating for illegal aliens. They just showed you how they're implementing policies and laws to protect them, to fund them, to give them free everything. And yet, they have not made any laws for American citizens or the Chicago citizens. As a matter of fact, your property taxes are getting ready to go up to fund this. All right, I'll talk to you all later. Please like and share this.